So today, I welcome everybody to today's Humanode Fireside. And today, the theme is biometric ownership. So, biometric ownership. David, do you want to give me a quick uh, overview of the concept of biometric ownership? Are you talking about the ownership of the biometrics or using biometrics to prove the ownership?
No, it's not about owning biometrics. It's about using your biometrics to verify the ownership of any digital asset or a real life asset.
Hmm.
So yeah, go on ahead.
No, no, go ahead, go ahead.
So we're talking about, and we're living in a world where we have to kind of have verified documents that prove that we own something or not. It means that like a third party have to have you somewhere in the database, your name written to a piece of land or uh, other immovable objects, or like a third party having your digital assets assigned to your logging or password or whatever you indulge yourself with. Um, well, Humanode is all about bridging the legal barrier here. And when we're talking about biometric ownership, we're talking about the ownership of digital assets that are connected to your biology and not to your legal document.
Mhm. So, this is, I know it might be jumping around here, but the first thing that comes to mind, I mean, as you know, I'm also a photographer, and I've been a photographer, a professional photographer for about 30 years now. Um, One of the um, key issues that photographers have had over the past 20 years or so is that once we went from film, which was a you know physical object, and went into the digital format, um, the issue of the ownership of the digital file, or uh, what we used to call a slide, um, kind of got fuzzy because we used to be able to have a physical object to print a photo and submit the photo, or if um, it was something that you freelanced, you could have multiple copies that you gave to specific parties for a specific amount of time, or in exchange for money or whatever. You kept the copyrights, and things were fairly simple. But when we moved into the digital format, people could simply copy your digital files. And, when you tried originally, when the internet started to bloom, we'd upload our photos and suddenly find that, there are 50 other people claiming that that was their photograph. So, being able to, as a photographer, being able to tie your work with with your biometrics, with uh, a solid uh, biometric signature saying that this is yours, um, is something that I think would be extremely useful. I mean, this might, you know, be in the form of maybe an NFT or something else, but um, I see it as a step forward. Obviously, there's still issues of uh, older photographs that you've taken, how do you how do you do it? As a photographer going out, um, I can take anywhere from a couple thousand to 10,000 photographs a day. It's like, okay, how do you attach your data to that? So anyway, just something that popped in my mind. Wondering if you have any thoughts on that, or if I have this all wrong.
I mean, that's exactly what we are implying here. We just want to make a system that is centralized, it's private, and when the assets are bound to a human being and the ownership is proven through blockchain and validation of real human beings, like uh, it's like a common human-based verifying layer of binding uh, legal rights to own something on chain. Um, and basically, in an ideal world where all the technology kind of works, you'd be binding all those photographs that you make instantaneously to yourself, and they would become like mm, unique because of that.
By the way, Shannon, just interesting. If we take into account the legacy system that we have right now and the ownership right now, so when everything became digital, have you found the solution to tie your artwork and your photographs to yourself to later prove that it was you who made them or not?
I think Jen is having some problems. Jen.
Oh, sorry there. Yes. Basically, the only thing that um, we've been able to do is really tie, well, let's say, type in your copyright info and your copyright claims and burn it into the data. Um, I, Adobe would allow you to do that. Um, I'm quite sure there are other ways of tying that data in into the photographic file, but still, I'm quite sure there are ways of wiping that info, and it does. Um, it works to a certain degree, but not really, because there's no way for somebody to really trace that back to you. And it's very, very hard to prove that actually you actually own that piece of work. So, I mean, looking forward, I can see this as an essential system that would be embedded into, let's say, photographs, or even if there's a way to tie your biometric ID to your camera, or I don't know how, or, or as you upload the original files into your computer, that is something that probably uh, can be done. But the real question that will come to mind are, obviously, things will have to be put in place, but um, this would have to be, of course, tied into copyright laws. And okay, how do we figure out who is actually the owner of, let's say, something that was uploaded 10 years ago, and somebody was one step quicker? It, you know, just various questions popping into my mind here, but I'm assuming um, we can embed the um, your ID into the works. Do you see this being done in a form of a smart contract or uh, an available service that some company will offer, or something that you'd be able to do on your own? Victor?
Mm, well, I saw this. If you're talking about artwork or any picture, it's much easier than that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because even right now, when you do a photo through Instagram, right inside the photo, there are traces left of where this photo has been made. I mean, its location. And you could do the same with the biometric data. You can leave the trace of who made this photo, but of course, a lot of integration has to happen for this to be inside any photo application.
Mm.
But it shouldn't be really a smart contract. I mean, if we're talking just about photo, right? But
Mm-hmm.
eventually, any platform where you publish NFTs are a set of smart contracts.
Donna, do you see this biometric identification turning into something like your signature for signing contracts or um, proving ownership?
That is
You
one
what?
of the faces. Yeah, John, please go ahead. John, please go ahead.
No, I was gonna say you can use it as KYC.
Mm.
Your biometrics. Could that be used like
Mm-hmm.
as a KYC?
Well, actually, I'm just from a brainstorm with a company who creates decentralized identity solution, as well as providing KYC to, for example, fundraising platforms. And actually, biometrics is something that you can use without using any personally identifiable information, which means that you can use biometrics without going through any know your customer service. This is one thing. The other side of the things where you do need KYC because you're working in the legal field as a person, not pseudonymously as we do it now in blockchain, you can have the KYC, but your decentralized identity data and the KYC data is tied to your password and your account. And then, bam, somebody enters your laptop and he uses your KYC data as if it's you using it, right? And then you got a malicious attack on your own identity. That's when tying the KYC to biometrics. This is like the other side of our use cases, non-pseudonymous, but I mean, it's saving people from malicious actors when those want to use their KYC data.
And I just imagine how much of that KYC data is just rubbish and false identities created based on printed legal documents. The amounts are terrifying, and here we're talking about very low possibility of spoofing an identity. So, yeah, ownership of real human beings.
So, Donna, earlier you were talking about um, using this the biometric identification for, let's say, ownership of even houses or cars, or possibly, well, I'm quite sure there are already experiments out there talking about using it for, let's say, tickets to concerts or for sports games. Um, and not necessarily biometric identification, but using um, NFT technology. What kind of scenarios uh, can you really imagine? Um, practical use cases that you could see uh, the Humanode biometric identification can be used for in the near future, or would be good to be used for.
Well, in my opinion, the ability to own something and it being bound to your biometrics, I won't go beyond the digital space for a long time, and it's not because the technology is not there. Blockchain is already there. Uh, that, that's because the legal um, it's a legal challenge for any nation to kind of verify that yes, indeed, there's a system that kind of binds something to your biologically, because the government, it kind of wants to uh, own your ownership over something and have the ability to either erase you in a database or transfer your own ownership to somebody else. Well, governments are different, so it really takes like a big leap of faith for them to just verify the systems. That's why I think it's like a long process, but and maybe it's even an uphill battle. But um, starting with like digital assets and just gaining a trust of people day by day will lead this version to victory, because, well, it's much more convenient than any legal document or anything else. It basically binding something to you and not something else.
So, right now, um, the way we are, of course, looking at biometric identification is auditable pseudonymous biometric identification. And um, obviously, we are looking, uh, and once you go through, let's say you're signing up for a node, once you go through the liveness detection and the the process of um, turning the 3D vector mask into numbers and turning it into a hash, um, especially zero knowledge proof and homomorphically encrypted hash. Um, the biometric data itself will be staying in our own computer or totally erased. And we're just talking about using this hash to prove that you are you. And with that in mind, um, I'm trying to envision how it can be actually tied to. Obviously, a system like this could be tied to you know digital assets, but how? I mean, the step forward there. Do you see, um, let's say, countries um, tie this into their passports, or uh, let's see, medical services, or how do you see this growing?
Well, countries are already doing that even without privacy because they don't care much about it. Yeah, I mean, the main issue here we're solving is privacy for those people who admire it right now, and for those who will start doing it pretty soon once they face the consequences of not being private at all. But I mean, if you just check at least 1 week of the biweekly reports of Paradigm and Biometrics, one can quickly understand that the biometric adoption among countries is really astonishing lately, just because in the last 2 years, the biometrics get to the point where it can be adopted without, incurring high cost and getting high accuracy on the biometric matching, and of course the liveness detection operations. And we're not talking here about only like developed countries. We're talking about almost every country in the world, including many parts of Africa.
Hmm.
Especially when you have really important points as airports, right? They do that. But on the other hand, even when we talk about that, well, they do not care about privacy and do not respect that. There was like one thing happening in US. I remember they took the photos of people at the metro station, and then people went to the court saying why you're doing that, and they actually succeeded in stopping that initiative of taking people's photos at the entrance of the metro station. Uh,
Yeah, go
I was
ahead.
going
Go
to
ahead.
say, yeah, I was going to say we're about 25 minutes in so far, and I was wondering if anybody had any questions or comments or opinions on um, biometric ownership and biometric identification. Any and all questions are welcome. Shy audience today, once again. So, Dotto,
Yeah.
you were saying?
Yeah, I mean, maybe like the entities, whichever entities, corporations or governments, really want to try out blockchain technology for ownership. But I mean, the state by which the blockchain is controlled is very sorry. That's why I think it really stops organizations from adopting it, because they don't know how the game is played beyond the veil, and they don't really know if everything is decentralized or not, or is just a charade to hide an oligarchy consisting of mining pools or just biggest validators in proof stake network. But if there's like a network where nodes are equal and tied to a biology of human beings, it's a completely different democratic consensus behind each verification. So, yeah, they might be able to try it out. The only thing left is to find such a network.
Well, hopefully we're talking about testnet within the next couple of months here, and mainnet launch within the next year. So,
yep. I hope that the hackers will be tracking to pawn our network, because they're one of the best ones, especially in US and Russia.
It will be interesting to see how hard we are hit.
Yeah, well, the good thing, we will always like wrap our transactions to capital-based chains like Ethereum for security reasons until we are really developed and tested by hackers.
Oh, it's, the hackers hitting the network is basically the forging process. So, uh, into the fire and then under the hammers, and let's see how resilient our whole process becomes.
Yep, that's right. We were staying pretty serious here talking about biometric ownership, but we all know that biometric ownership of a ticket into the party, into the central land, is something that will be adopted sooner, right? And will bring a lot of fun to people.
You want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, basically, we already have a company on the market in the metaverse space. I mean, crypto metaverse, right? Where people can own property that exists in the virtual reality that is limited, build a house there, or whatever they want. And we already have now protocols building like one meta key to enter your properties, or to store your ticket to the party in the central land, one of which we hope we will join this month, and we'll be even pitching there. So how you decide who comes to the party, who not? I mean, imagine this is the party in the decentralized VR space where the, I don't know, the heads of different countries meet, right? And they discuss pretty private things, and they don't want anybody else to enter it. Or there are, I don't know, VCs who are going to pump and dump a coin, and they want to discuss it in the metaverse. And they don't want anybody to hear that, or they can get to prison, especially if they're in US. And they want to be sure that nobody stole the wallet with the ticket to enter the building in the decentralized virtual reality world. And that's why they would better match their biometrics to the wallet they're storing the ticket on. And that will become the ultimate key to any property or any party in the metaverses.
Keep seeing, and it's like all these science fiction novels and movies from the 90s.
Yeah, Shannon, but the thing is, we'll be going to such a party probably this month, okay, where only the founders of companies will be. Yeah.
Interesting.
Not science fiction anymore.
Yep, that's true. Okay, here's just one. I know this is a silly question, or everybody probably has the answer to, but I think the number one newbie question that you will be getting is, okay, so we have the ownership of these digital assets tied to our biometric identification. What happens, let's say, if I have a stroke, or I walk out in the street, I get run over by a bus? It's like, how do you
Good
think?
luck for you then.
What? How do you think? Let's say the legal system will work. How do these assets just go poof, or are they locked indefinitely, or how do you think it would work?
they will do whatever you choose for them. They can either go poof if you want to, maybe. For example, you don't want anybody to inherit something. They can become public. You just have to mm, make it prepare this stuff beforehand in the interface, which will be available, of course. Or you can choose your successor, which, and like, if you don't enter for your into your wallet or your application for uh, amount of time set by yourself, then this access will be automatically transferred or released to public or deleted, whatever you choose for them.
Hmm. Well, actually, that just funny thought crossed my mind. Is that, that would be an ideal system for uh, many use cases. I can see some people basically saying, okay, once I die, I want all my assets to be given to charity, and I don't want my kids quibbling about inheritance.
Well,
And I can say
that's also a question of being legalized, because every country has a different inheritance law, and
that's true.
somewhere what you said there won't cut.
Hmm. But then again, I can see another use case in where a teenager will basically set his digitally owned porn collection to automatically go poof the moment he dies, so his mom doesn't find out after he goes.
Yeah, that's why would he even bind it to himself?
Good question. Okay. So, let's see. What are other, use cases that you would see?
Oh, I mean, the obvious one is your medical card,
Hmm.
insurance. It's like, yes, there have been a lot of medical blockchains out there throughout all these years, which we're
Hmm.
talking about creating a unique public address for a client or like a patient. That patient could travel around the world and demonstrate his illnesses. Different organizations proving that he is him, not somebody else. But I
Hmm.
mean, you could just give your public address and key to somebody else, and that guy would have your insurance, and that's not cool, right? Like,
Hmm.
people, like, systems don't work that way. You have to differentiate people between one another. And so here we have like a perfect solution. Like, we verify you're a human being, and you have your medical card universally attached to yourself. You can move around the world and go anywhere, and it will be decentralized and private. And the doctors and all organizations will surely know that this is definitely you.
That is obviously something that I think a lot of people would be very interested in. I mean, even in uh, Japan, which is supposed to be a country that is technologically somewhat advanced, um, it really depends on the technology you're talking about. For example, I have diabetes, so I go to a doctor once a month for my checkup, but I have to go to the exact same doctor every time in the exact same hospital. So I'm basically bound to this neighborhood if I want to go, let's say, on a business trip or a vacation for, 2, 3 months. Let's say if I want, we say, okay, launching Humanode, let's go over to Seattle for half a year, or let's go to somewhere. Yeah, I'd have to um, go through a whole medical process under a whole different set of laws. So having something like that would be amazing. But in Japan, once again, we don't even have this information on a digital card or in a database. We're giving this little physical booklet that is probably, it's of course not as thick, but it's the size of a novel, a book that you can buy. And each month, the doctor scribbles down your numbers and how things are going, and you're not allowed to lose that book. It's like, okay, I have this book with all this data. It's pen and paper. Can't they make it so it's at least the size of something that I could put in my wallet, or not even have to deal with it? Um, can it be kept online and basically use biometric identification to get the data? I mean, it sounds like it's a no-brainer, but it's something that at least the systems in Japan haven't figured out how to do. I mean, I do have a friend in Korea who uh, started a company just to create cards, cards for medical information in a database that can be shared uh, all over certain areas of Asia. But once again, that's quite an extensive system, and it's pretty darn expensive, and you still have to carry around a plastic card with your data on it. So,
I have another idea for like one of the most useful use cases for this, right? So imagine now you're logging into your accounts using some authentication system. I think that Google is the most used one, but at the same time you have a couple of others, right?
Mhm.
For those, you always have different emails, different passwords, and there is no central point for them to merge because they're like competing with each other, right? But eventually, if you have the like distributed and private biometric database that you can trust, any of those authentication systems could be connected through this biometric database. It's like the central point. And I hope that the decentralized version of that will win, and those centralized won't hear what I'm saying right now.
Do you buy a bunker already, Rita?
What?
Do you have a bunker?
Oh, actually, it's right near my house.
I'm coming.
All of the years I lived here, right?
I mean, today you own something because not because you own it, but because somebody allows you to own it. Because don't have any problems with your government or any third parties associated with kind of assigning the ownership of something to you. So it doesn't really belong to you. It belongs to the people who give permission for you to own. And transcending legal documents and ownership, like transcending the boundaries of legal stuff is well, it seems like a distant future or like a heavenly dream, but this would definitely make the world a better place.
Indeed. So we're, let's see, a little over 40 minutes, 42 minutes into this chat so far. I would like to open the floor to all and any questions and comments. It can be regarding biometric ownership or anything else related to the topic or anything Humanode. So Please, if you have questions, uh, just raise your hand or type it out or speak it out. Let's see. I can always ask somebody who I know is talkative. Edward, do you have any questions or comments or thoughts on biometric ownership?
I think biometrics is a very important topic to discuss, and I mean using AI to solve like ownership so that we all have a self-sovereignty over our own biometric. I think that's important. So looking forward to when Humanode has a testnet and mainnet. Interesting to try it out. I think no questions from my side. Just that I just find quite fascinating to learn about different kinds of biometrics, and yeah, just in general. I guess for the researchers at Humanode, just keep up the good work. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
I was wondering if you find appropriate, like, I guess there's like a small dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
For example, let's imagine a terrorist owns a lot of stuff, like a lot of digital assets and resources, right? And
Mm-hmm.
if he wields the resources and he has access to them, he can like potentially cause a lot of damage and destruction to ordinary people. Now, if like governments have no hands on our stuff, they cannot limit potential danger posed by such people. If, for example, all ownership is decentralized, private, and biometric based, and it's inalienable at the same time, I guess it kind of ties the government's hands up and kind of unties the hands of terrorists in this matter. What do you think about this?
I think that as you already like decentralized the methods of control, that means that now the control is in the hands of the DAO controlling the network and the consensus. Because you know that any blockchain is immutable until you have the majority who wants to mute it.
Yeah, here you don't have a majority. You have one guy who wants to blow things up.
Well, until the majority knows that he wants to blow things up and tries to block him, well, we're doomed.
Do you think I mean, you're going back to the question of, legality, and I'm just wondering if the day and age of each nation's having their own independent laws is coming to an end, and where we actually have to have a universal code of law that that is standardized, that would allow, let's say, if we identify that terrorists, or if the terrorist is identified, and based on international law, that account needs to be impounded, that there's a way to actually legally impound that account, and or restore it if the name is cleared. Do you think we need to go, I mean, the world would have to go that far, or do you think this is something that can be covered just by international agreements between the various nations laying out the baseline? Or it will be something that is strictly controlled by the DAO?
Well, at first, second option, because it's easier to make up from the bottom than controlling the, getting the whole world into agreement. But of course, there are a lot of people dreaming of when we all become one. But as we know, people like to fight so much that probably some pieces of the world will be. We will never agree on this matter as well. So yeah, it looks like we're left, coordinating ourselves inside our little DAOs for the most part.
Just wondering. I mean, I'm not sure that people love to fight because they love to fight. It's just way too profitable for some people right now. Dato, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I guess I kind of agree with both of you.
I thought
So
humans
what?
be
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
like on some biomedical engineering type of thing.
Can you ask the question again or the comment again? You just kind of cut off a bit. Trip, can you ask the question again?
Wasn't like click or something? Trip.
Biomedical engineering.
Biomedical engineering.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's a topic for another day.
Well, Trip is back.
Trip, did you have a question there?
I do. What is the overall concept of Humanode?
Well, the overall concept of Humanode is basically to, use the biometric identification as the stake. Instead of having a proof of work system or proof of stake system, one biometric ID equals one node, equals one vote in the DAO. And
Biometric node, is it attached to like a sort of human DNA or something like that? Like, like a fingerprint or something?
There'll be many modalities that can be used, but right now we're using liveness detection through face mapping, and yeah, and obviously when we go LiveNet, we'll be using multiple identifiers, but this information will all be encrypted. Will only be used in encrypted space. Your biometric identification itself will not leave your computer or your possession, but the hash created by it, identifying or tying that to you, is what will be used to create the node.
Where will all that be stored? Because like, I mean, like, if I was to like, go to a place and like, want part of my DNA in that certain place, whether it be a hospital or whatnot, don't you guys have to like do a certain type of licensing with a whole bunch of hospital places and whatnot? You're like with a whole bunch of hospitals, or is it just like you guys got your own spot?
David, do you want to answer that? Or I could go ahead. So, I mean, basically, we don't have a centralized server where we collect everybody's, biometric identification. This is a total decentralized network, and the biometric identification. Let's say, all the nodes share the ledger, and all nodes have the hash of the registered users for search and matching, but only you have your actual biometric uh, information there. So that hash is tied to whatever service you use uh, within the network.
Yeah,
So,
but basically having that reference information about yourself in the medical database without even revealing your identity could allow different medical institutions to understand that, yep, this is your data without even knowing who you are.
and obviously, I can see hospitals tying that data to their own database, but um, even then, all it is a hash that is an identifier saying that yes, this person is a Humanode, and whatever else information you provide to that hospital or the insurance company is totally separate from that. So,
Wondering because like for something like that to take place, for like me to like go to a hospital and like not say my name at all, but like just to like identify myself as a certain number, I think that would have to like comply with all the hospitals around the world because unless there start to be like a decentralized hospital, which I kind of, which like it is possible to like have a whole bunch of decentralized hospital, but like at the rate that we're all right now, there's not a lot of people that like there's only 5% of us in this whole DeFi space throughout the whole world, compared to like 95% of the world still do not know about the whole decentralized space, unlike people like us, like we're like the elites really at the end of the day. So, so like for us to like do a whole bunch of decentralized hospital, there's gonna have to be like a certain type of compliance, especially with regular people. Or if not, just gonna be just the 5% of us that's doing it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're completely right here. And this is one of the reasons why we initially want to target the other crypto protocols, serving to them our crypto biometrics. And we have seen, companies in crypto for the past 5 years sometimes taking direction to serve. Even we're not talking about hospitals, which are sometimes governmental organizations, but just small and medium businesses, and they failed. That's why, yeah, it's usually good to evolve from crypto and not trying to get others into crypto.
at the same time, we're also looking at
Go ahead.
trying to lower the bar in a sense where eventually, as this technology grows, as this decentralized network grows, it will become easier and easier for people to actually uh, become a human node, to actually register their biometric identification to participate in the network. And as the bar is lowered, we can see this basically being something that could be used around the world, and not just by people in the DeFi space now, but let's say even your grandma and grandpa might want to use it. I don't know, but our in a sense, our goal is to create a much larger network. But in the beginning, obviously, we have to start with those who know and see the benefits in decentralized finance and decentralized networks. So we are just about at the 1 hour mark, meaning it's almost the end of our fireside of the day. If anybody has any lasting comments, Dato, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah. I like actually got like one more question. So when it comes to like like protecting like your pretty much like your identification, right? In the past, I noticed that there was some similar um like some similar platforms. I think it was ID, which was one of them, ID Everest, and there was another one called Shift Network. How do you guys differentiate yourselves from those two?
Oh, they never worked with biometrics. That's easy as that. I mean, frankly speaking, we're not doing anything at decentralized identity space. That is where you upload your data privately, you store it privately, and then you share with those companies that you want to, piece by piece, right? Not storing on a centralized server, never, just sending to your counterparties. And we are partnering up with those. We're not building it ourselves. We are the first company in the crypto space that is building the crypto biometric protocol, meaning that well, the thing is, there is well, biometrics are probabilistic, okay, and yeah, but there are different attack vectors other than on decentralized identities on biometrics. That's the biggest difference. And the whole our network, is built on biometrics, meaning that one person cannot create more than one node. Yeah, we're talking both here about the new kind of infrastructure where everybody can become a staker without having a stake in the network. And we're talking here about, of course, biometric use cases for other protocols.
I see, I see.
Okay, well, thank you all. I think this brings us to an end for this episode of the Fireside. And we will be having another one, same time, same place, 2 weeks from now. And Dato, do you have any comments?
Well, I just hope that one day there's no necessity to have all these documents, and having somebody in the government to know that you own something for sure. And
Okay, so I think that wraps it up. And I see you left a question in the Telegram. We'll answer it there. And thank you, everyone, for joining. And see you next time.
Yep. Thank you. Gene, data is stored, distributed across the network, completely encrypted. But that's it. See you next time, guys.